What's up guys, I'm Matt. Today I'm going to be asking the question, why are so many rock fans and former scene kids also fans of the hip hop duo Run the Jewels? Like, in what universe does that make sense? We're going to talk about how Adult Swim fits into the equation and collaborations with other artists in rock, like Rage Against the Machine and Travis Barker, and even an album full of cat noises. First, I want to thank you guys for watching and subscribing to my channel. I'm really looking forward to branching out more on YouTube, so I appreciate you being here. I'm really excited too because I'm almost finished with deployment, so I can stop filming here in my barracks room and actually go home and film. I just want to say thanks again, and let's get into it. So the question is, why are so many rock fans also seemingly fans of the hip hop duo Run the Jewels? RTJ is made up of Brooklyn, New York-based LP and Southern rapper from Atlanta, Killer Mike. They've made multiple albums together, have been featured extensively on Adult Swim, and really took off around like 2013, 2014. I think there's a few factors that go into their popularity. One being the type of hip-hop that some of us grew up listening to. Another is doing multiple features and collaborations with other rock artists like Zach De La Rocha and Travis Barker, just to name a couple. And then the obvious being how Adult Swim led to their formation and so much exposure in the early years of the group. So like a lot of other scene kids in their 30s, I grew up on MTV and shows like TRL. At the time, New York and Southern hip hop was really popular. New York hip hop went from groups like Rakim and Eric B to LL Cool J, which Run the Jewels got their name from an LL Cool J track. And then eventually Nas, Jay-Z, and 50 Cent. I listened to all sorts of stuff like that in high school. That's sort of the background that LP comes from and how he got into production and rapping. Down south, groups like Outkast were featured really heavily, and Lil Jon and the East Side Boys. And then eventually a guy like T.I. In fact, I actually heard Killer Mike for the first time on that Bone Crusher track that featured T.I. Never Scared. I think a lot of it has to do with like the hip hop that we grew up with and what we recognize to be like gritty and good. Another factor that goes into it is once the group was established, who they collaborated with. For example, in 2015, once Run the Jewels was already established, they did a show in New York with Jack White. They also featured Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine on their second album on the track Close Your Eyes. On that same album, Travis Barker is featured on the song All Due Respect. So I think a combination of hip hop that we grew up with and recognize, and then being featured with artists that we also know really well, led to this melding of the best of both worlds. Finally, and the super obvious reason, is how the duo actually got together through Cartoon Network and had to pop in for a quick edit. The group was introduced to each other by Jason DeMarco, who was the creative director at Adult Swim at the time. I said James DeMarco in my video. Here's him telling part of the story in his own words.
I am Jason DeMarco. I'm the vice president and creative director of Adult Swim On Air. I think when I die, this is going to be my one claim to fame, but Run the Jewels exists because I put Mike and L together. I knew that L messed with like major label Southern rap, so I knew that he might be willing to work with Mike, and I assumed he had heard of him because he was up on everybody. We want you to come in and do a song or two. We didn't think it would be an album, but just a song or two with Killer Mike, and he said, hell yeah. Basically, when they met, it was like birds started tweeting, and the sun came out of the clouds, and hearts came out of both of them, and it was basically they fell in love with each other.
He introduced the two in 2011 when Killer Mike was working on an album. LP helped produce that and appeared on a track. They wrote a couple songs together. They started touring together. Each would do a set individually, and then they would come out together and perform as Run the Jewels. And the two of them performing together started to become super popular. If you remember back then, Run the Jewels was featured heavily on those Adult Swim like interludes. That and the Adult Swim social media campaign for Run the Jewels really helped proliferate them early on in their career. They had a collaboration episode with Rick and Morty, worked with Eric Andre. They were all over Adult Swim. With the help of Adult Swim, they put out their first album in 2013. Once that proved to be a success, they started working on their second together, which came out in 2014. Run the Jewels 2 had multiple features like Zach De La Rocha and Travis Barker. And for whatever reason, the internet was clamoring for a cat collaboration with this one too. I think it was mostly Reddit fans that wanted a cat remix to this. That's definitely an Adult Swim sort of move. So another year goes by and they release a remixed version of the album called Meow the Jewels. They performed at Coachella and Bonnaroo. Like, these guys blew the fuck up. They were obviously better together than as individual artists, or at least more successful. They released Run the Jewels 3 in 2015, this time working with Trina, and then Run the Jewels 4 in 2020, working with Zach De La Rocha again and Pharrell on a track, and 2 Chainz. Part of the reason why rock and scene fans really seem to fall in love with Run the Jewels, working with artists in and around the rock scene, combination of the New York and Southern hip hop roots. Obviously the Cat album helped out in a huge way. And then Adult Swim of all shows bringing this duo together and like really pumping them early on in their career. I think this is a pretty good encapsulation of the reason why, but if I missed anything, let me know in the comments. I appreciate you guys checking out my channel. Please subscribe and let me know what other videos you guys would like to see in the future. See ya.